If you were to take this historical narrative, if you were to decide that you wanted to read this to your children or your grandchildren one evening, or let's say one day when they are sick, staying home with them to make sure they do not get into mischief, Genesis may be a really good story that you can read to them. And I would recommend that if you were to, a good way to remember how to introduce and possibly to ask the child if they would like to be read the book of Genesis. The thing that comes to mind and a good hook would be to get their attention is if you remember The Princess Bride. So The Princess Bride, the grandfather comes over. So as we read or we see the movie, the grandfather comes over and to read his grandson a story. And the grandson says, "A book, does it have sports in it?" And the grandfather says, "Are you kidding? Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true loves, and miracles." So this is a very good introduction for a child on what Genesis is all about, almost similar to the comic book Bible. Genesis is filled with some of the biggest heroes that we see in all of Scripture and some of the most amazing stories that have ever been recorded for us in human history. Genesis plays a role in the entirety of Scripture. It's the introduction to everything else that we see and learn throughout Scripture. We're introduced to characters, themes, and also events that we'll find unfold throughout the remainder of Scripture. The characters that we find in Genesis that we'll find throughout all of Scripture, some of these are, we see Adam mentioned 12 times throughout Scripture, Noah 16 times, Abraham more than 100 times, and the children of Israel, or Israel, we see mentioned more than 2,000 times throughout Scripture.